Hi, everybody. Looks like we're all here and ready to go. Welcome to the Tech Industry Panel for Google's VetNet Career Week. My name is Wayne Mantle, and I come to you from the Global Product Partnerships team here at Google. And I'm also a proud U.S. Army veteran, and I spent a number of years in the 173rd Airborne Brigade in Vicenza, Italy. So for the next hour, it's going to be my pleasure, my absolute delight, really, to talk to 6 wonderful panelists from the tech space. So the purpose of this panel, like many of the other ones that we're running this week, is for you, the audience, and a vibrant group of veterans, to hear from representatives of different companies to talk about their experience working in this space, in our tech space. And hopefully you get a better understanding of what roles are available, hear recommendations and personal stories and anecdotes about how we got our foot in the door, so that you can apply those to your path as well. And hopefully, in addition to that, you get a better sense of understanding the tech industry in general, and if it's something that's within your career aspirations. So we've got Sarah, Merrick, Anne, Stephanie, Troy, and Chuck all on the line. Thank you so much for being here today and joining us, and also giving back to our vibrant veteran community. I think the best way to start this is by going around a bit of a round robin and doing a quick set of introductions: who you are, your name, where you're based, the company that you are from, and maybe just a quick little background story about yourself. And also, of course, what branch of service you are in. So we'll start there, and let's go with Sarah first.
Great, thanks, Wayne, and it's so great to be here today. I'm currently the global head of inauthentic behavior operations, as well as the head of account and identity integrity at Facebook. Former Army, I worked in the military intelligence field, based out of Austin, Texas currently. And I think in there we get to talk about what we love most about tech or our companies. And I will say that it is humbling to work in tech because I get to work around some of the smartest people on the planet. And when you're surrounded by so much intellectual horsepower on a day-to-day basis, it really it inspires you to up your game and to be the best version of yourself.
Yep, cool, thank you for that. Let's jump over to Merrick.
All right, so I'm happy to be here. My name is Merrick Van Dongen. I am a former Navy submarine officer. Seems like ages ago, but I've been with Microsoft for just over 15 years now, and I lead a team on education and workforce development for the military affairs group. And really cool mission, being able to help transitioning service members and veterans and skilling them in the IT field and placing them into jobs. And that's the primary focus of my area right now.
Awesome, great, thank you, Merrick. Let's jump over to Anne.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Anne Wiebe. I served in the Army. I was enlisted and got out in 2006. I've been at Salesforce now for about 6 years, and I'm here based in the Bay Area near that beautiful Salesforce Tower. So as the Vice President of Workforce Innovation and Head of Salesforce Military, I spend my days helping veterans break into tech. We are a job creator at Salesforce, so our customers and partners need people who know our technology and really need veterans and military spouses at their companies. And so it's a real privilege to do what I do every day.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. Stephanie, you're up next.
Yeah, hey everyone. Great to be on this panel. Super honored to be among some of the brightest in the tech industry. My name is Stephanie Foley. I'm a West Point 09 grad. Did about 7.5 years in the Army and active duty logistics. Currently, I'm a product manager, technical senior product manager at Amazon, working on a confidential project in the e-commerce space. I'm super excited to be here and share wisdom across the board, and look forward to seeing some of the faces interviewing at these companies.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. The audio was a little bit chopped there, but I'm sure it'll resolve. Troy, let's jump over to you.
All right, thanks, Dwayne. And hey, thanks for inviting me to the panel. This is an honor with the other veterans and be able to talk to vets about joining the tech career field. So my name's Troy Stevens. I work for Citrix. I'm located in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I was a security specialist. Today for Citrix, I run the pre-sales team for our enterprise group in the central United States. So favorite part for me is aligning, customers with our technology and then leading my team. I think that's one of the highlights of my career is being able to lead people and mentor.
Awesome. Thank you, Troy. Chuck, I think you're the last person up.
Oh, thanks, Dwayne. All right, I'll take it, man. My name is, again, I'm +1 to everybody. I'm super happy to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to, participate where I can and helping other vets look at this industry as an option in the transition process. Chuck St. Pierre, I am at LinkedIn. I've been here for about 4 years. I am the Director of Security, Safety, and Risk Management globally. So I've got quite a scope of operations considering the COVID issues going on right now, but we're making it through. I was a Air Force officer and 10 years enlisted, 10 years officer, retired in 2009. I was an OSI special agent, and then I became a political military affairs officer and ended up teaching at Naval Postgraduate School in California, which is where I am today. And I'm actually in Sunnyvale. So living the dream out here, playing golf and drinking wine. But really am happy to be here and looking forward to some Q&A.
Awesome. So Chuck, since you gave us such a good background on your whole, or at least a bit of your journey, I'd love to start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the moment, if there was one, where you realized you wanted to go into tech, whether it was right as you were getting out of the military or several steps afterwards. And tell us about the immediate steps that you took to actually make that a reality.
Yeah, great question, Dwayne. So yeah, the way I was considering things when I was getting ready to do that transition was essentially leverage what I knew best. I was in the career field. I was connected in the security industry, actually deeply connected in the contractor side of security for military forces. So I did what I think a lot of my peers end up doing is I just jumped ship and I changed clothes and went right back to work doing what I was doing for a contractor. And it was a great option to kind of do that, first step off the ledge. But I think what really got me was that, those things that you found in the military, the things that really kept you there and kept you, in that space weren't there on the contractor side quite as much. So it took me about a year, a little more than a year to figure out that I need to kind of look at something that was equally, inspiring to me that I had passion for. And I looked at really what was happening when I retired in 2009 and 2010, and tech was growing exponentially. It was just, that was the growth industry and every aspect of it, from the physical security of all the real estate that they were requiring to, all of the things that were happening online and on these digital platforms that were really, really starting to grow. So I started looking in those spaces and realized I had virtually zero skills. So I was struggling to make my resume match up to the things that they were asking us to be able to do. So I actually took the plunge and I took what I considered to be, a little bit of a demotion, if you will, to get into an industry and just to get that foot in the door and allow me the opportunity to prove myself and to prove my worth in the space. And the strategy paid. I came in as basically a project manager. And within a couple of years, I was directing a PMO in the software industry and then moved into the quality assurance aspects and eventually slid right over to Microsoft/LinkedIn. And I'm now working happily in that space. And, like I said, living the dream, drinking wine and playing golf like the rest of us out here in California.
Awesome. That's a great story. Anyone else on the panel have anything?
Nope. Is our host supposed to have technical difficulties?
No.
I think it was drop the mic from you, Chuck. I mean, that was it.
Boy.
Shut it all down.
There
You're
he's
back,
back.
Dwayne, I think.
Yep, sorry about that. Did everyone, did you guys catch, did the panelists catch my question before I dropped off there for a moment? No? I was just asking the other panelists if anyone else would want to share their own personal story about the moment where they realized that they wanted to go into the tech industry and the next steps that they took to make it a reality.
So Dwayne, I'll jump on that one just because I think my path was not as smooth as Chuck's. Chuck was like, he knew what he wanted to do. It aligned with what he was doing. For me, I was looking at going into federal law enforcement. I mean, I was down that path, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm really looking at going into this tech area and doing, programming and doing these things." He said, "You might want to look into this." I actually went and talked with someone, and that conversation made me, I wouldn't say doubt what I was going to do, but it did make me question it a little bit, where I'm like, okay, I think I better look into this a little bit more. 2 weeks later, I enrolled and did something completely different. Went on a path for MIS, and I guess the rest is history. I took that path, and I'm really happy I did. I mean, I think that was just a pivot point for me.
Awesome. Let's jump over to Anne. I'm trying to spread the love a little bit, make sure all of our panelists get a moment to chime in. Given your position at Salesforce, and I know you probably give these recommendations out quite often, but what would you say is your biggest recommendation to veterans or military, active duty military that have an interest in jumping into tech industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think, learn and network, right? And so, I always talk to people who just have impressive military backgrounds and so much to offer, but really industry credentials can be a huge differentiator. And in a small amount of time, if there's a company, or technology that you're going to use, taking that initiative and getting that credential proactively is really, really powerful for us and our customers and partners. And just that social capital. You can know all about a field, but you've got to have somebody to introduce you to your first hiring manager or introduce you to a referral at a company. And I just see so many folks who don't take advantage of when a group of people says, reach out to me, or let me know if you have any questions, and keeping that network fresh, not just connecting with people to connect with them right in a virtual world, but really meaningful guidance from folks who are already in the industry. It's hard to navigate companies where titles get made up and departments pop up all over. Really only someone who's on the inside can help you navigate that.
Awesome, good advice. Anyone else have anything to add to those two nuggets of advice?
I would say take advantage of the resources that you have available to you as a service member, transitioning service member, or veteran. There's the SkillBridge site, MilGears, get your credentials paid for by the Credentialing Opportunities Online service. So there are so many resources available to you to help you skill and target those areas that you have passion for and are interested in. I'd really advocate for doing that, in addition to networking, as Ann said.
Yep. I've got a couple follow-on questions to that for both Sarah and Stephanie, doing a little bit of a 1-2 punch here. We talked a little bit about credentials and getting prepped to making that transition over into tech, but not everyone has a technical background, and not everyone is going into tech to do something that is technical. So would love to pick your guys' brain on like, how much do you think functional expertise matters with regard to going into tech? We'd love to throw that over to you, Sarah.
Great question. I would say that, we especially being on the other side of the fence, so to speak, once we're in position and in role, it starts to look like we have a lot of these functional, skills that we build up over time. But candidly, I stepped into tech 5-6 years ago without any skills in tech. And Chuck, shout out to LinkedIn. I reached out to a recruiter via LinkedIn, and I said, hey, this is who I am. These are the things that I do really well. Here's my resume. Do you have room for someone like me? That was the magical conversation that led to my getting a PM role at Dell and stepping foot into the technical world. And from there, I think the first person that I was paired up with a project on was a guy who had 30 years in tech, was one of the original architects of the DARPANET. So not to worry, there are a lot of people with tremendous skills and backgrounds there. Sometimes our biggest value is being able to translate that into business terms and impact on the other side.
Yeah. Sarah, I'd just like to echo not that I'm doing a plug because I'm a LinkedIn guy, but I'll say that everybody on this panel is a veteran and we all work in companies. And I, for one, I'm a co-chair for our veterans ERG at LinkedIn. So if you find a veteran that's in the business that you want to be in, connect with them up and don't just drop a request from some stranger because you get hundreds of those. You really send a message if you can, invest in that premium membership. If you're a veteran, you get one for free anyway, and reach out. I get lots of them from all kinds of strangers. But when somebody says, I'm an Air Force vet, or I'm an Army vet, I've been downrange, I've done this, I've been there. Can you help me? And I love it. I really do. I take time out of my day to respond and see what they can do. And at some point, connect them up in a way where you've got recruiters or hiring managers are asking you for your resume instead of you having to be on the other side sending your resume everywhere and hoping somebody likes it. So.
Yep.
I'll look at that, Chuck. We have the same thing. The Microsoft Military ERG, similar to LinkedIn. I see tons of requests coming over there, and there are contacts saying I've got a veteran who's whether they're cleared or not, and what their background is, and we go to that extra length to help those folks.
Yeah, going back to your question, Dwayne, I would say, I think military personnel are uniquely positioned to go into the tech industry because I think the only constant in the military is change. And that is what the tech industry is about, right? Like we're constantly innovating, thinking big, breaking things, and just moving fast. And I think that that transferable skill really allows individuals from the military to shine. I think, as Sarah already alluded to it, it's like we bring in the soft skills, we bring in the the ability to translate from tech to business. I personally do not have a technical background aside from a bachelor's of science from West Point. So I think a lot of it is it's about your ability to adapt and be humble and to learn from people that's within industry, to be like, hey, can you walk me through the architecture design of whatever product that we're working on, and just asking the questions, being humble and be ready to learn and adapt.
Yep, that's awesome. That all sounds like it's music to my ears. It takes me back to those moments where I was making the transition myself. So all that makes a ton of sense. Troy, I've got a question for you. What habits did you develop in the military that you found to be super helpful and valuable for you in tech? That's part one. But part two of the question is, what habits did you develop in the military that probably were not best suited for tech? So that's at the same point.
Yeah, great. Well, the first one, I think that you go in, and I went in young enough that I didn't have an idea of professionalism, what that meant. Didn't even make my bed every day. So, I didn't have hardly any of those things when I went in. But when I went in, I realized really quickly that to be successful and to get where you want to be, the professionalism and the precision that they taught you, that stuck with me. And that stuck with me just not, because you have to do it when you're there. It stuck with me, through my life, and it still does. That mission driven and discipline, I think, that they give you, it's just something that they would say, did they they beat it into you? They really didn't. You saw it as a better way, and I think that definitely helped me. It helps me today. Actually, and the second question was, what did I what did I do that didn't help me at all in the tech field? Well, just about everything, Dwayne. So I think that's the better way to answer that. You know, I shot guns and did things like that where it was just different. But you know, the transition I do think has helped me. And for me, I've at one time had five vets on my team, and that wasn't a coincidence. So yeah, I'll leave it there. So.
Yep, no, that's good. That's a good answer. Anne, how about you? We'd love to hear your take on the habits question. Good habits that you brought from the military into tech, and also things that you feel today, upon reflection, weren't the best habits to bring in.
Yeah, I think for the first one, it'd be just a sense of trust with the people you work with and really high functional teams, especially in the era of COVID, where we've been in one another's homes. You know, we've really had to bring our whole selves to work in a way that we didn't before. And, you know, bringing people in, really getting to know what's going on with them, I think has really helped us move further faster around the company and our team in particular. The thing that wasn't as helpful is hierarchy, and, you know, kind of chain of command and sort of working within that very formal structure. It's not the fastest or right way to get things done in tech, and it's best checked at the door.
Awesome. Love that response. So Merrick, you talked a lot about how you know, you invest a lot of time in bringing veterans into the industry. Can you give us an overview or a rundown of what types of roles you think are best for vets to start in?
Well, so within Microsoft, we are focused on, I support a program called Microsoft Software and Systems Academy, and we've established, and this is as an example, we've established 2 different learning paths to direct folks coming into the IT sector into entry-level roles. We're working with them both on the skilling side and job placement. So those two roles, those core entry-level roles, one's in cloud application development, and the other is in server and cloud administration. We've found that over time, those specific areas are the most in demand at an entry level for the widest group of folks, including Microsoft Business Groups, but also we have over 750 business or hiring partners that we work with to get folks jobs, and those are the core areas we look at. We're branching out into some more custom cohort areas, but as an example to that, we had in the past a cybersecurity curriculum, but what we were finding is folks going into cybersecurity, our hiring partners, even Microsoft Business Groups, were looking for people that had lots of experience in that area that they wanted to hire. So we were finding graduates from that curriculum weren't getting placed very often or very well, because we were targeting a field where, you know, experience really mattered. So for those folks getting into IT for the first time, we've since really focused on those core entry-level positions to you know, focus our efforts in that training endeavor.
Yep, that makes sense. Chuck, you have any thoughts on that? Anything to add there?
Well, I think the one thing, and I kind of mentioned it in the intro, that's when you leave the military, I mean, being in the military, there's a whole lot of compelling attributes about remaining in. You know, the sense of a higher purpose, the camaraderie you build, the opportunities. But when you get out, if you're looking for where do I go from here, a lot of those things that are great about the military don't exist outside of it very often. So you should find something that's you can become equally passionate about. I know that's kind of a stretch because you don't even really know what you're passionate about yet. You're trying to figure that out. But you go into a general area, like Merrick was alluding to, that, hey, you know, I'd like cybersecurity. Well, that's great, but you're really not going to come in at a higher level or maybe a transitional level. You're going to come in something in that domain get your chops under you, find out what it's all about, learn about it a little bit, and then move on. And I guess maybe some opportunities in that space, maybe don't always look to go get hired at Microsoft. Microsoft is there. I'll just use LinkedIn as an example. We've got 25,000 employees. We've got 90,000 contractors. So, there's contractor positions all over. Everybody on this call has huge armies of contractors that support their actual core functions. And you can go in there and explore, and you can bounce around, and you can check things out and see what you really feel passionate about. And that would be where you'd like, okay, I love cybersecurity. I'm going to go become a threat intelligence specialist. And then you start playing around in that space. And at some point you'll get noticed if you're doing things right. And then you may get an FTE opportunity. And then you're in the place you want to be, but it just takes a little time, and you just need to be patient. And that patience pays off with being passionate about what you end up doing.
Yep. Hearing those anecdotes from both Chuck and Merrick makes me think about a time when I myself was helping veterans be recruited into a former employer. This is not a number of years ago, maybe 10 something years ago. And there were certain occasions where myself and other veterans thought that there was a candidate that was great. We understood their resume. It was fantastic. But then when it got to a certain level, hiring authority within the company, lots of questions came back down around, where is their customer facing experience? Where is their, like lots of things that are specific to being out and in industry that don't necessarily jump off the page of a military resume. And, not asking the panel here to divulge these types of behind closed doors conversations, but what is it that you do internally to help, shift that mental model? Now, my example is from over probably a decade ago, so maybe things have changed, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on if you've seen that and what you do to try to change that mentality. I'll start with you, Sarah.
That's a great question. I think there is always an opportunity, especially as we've transitioned, for example, into some of these management roles, to help influence the narrative and to change the dialogue. While we definitely get a lot of veterans that put in their applications, sometimes it takes folks like myself and the folks on this panel to reach in and to translate a little bit. I mean, you won't find very many advocates as passionate about the veteran community as other vets themselves. I've spent a lot of time with my recruiters thinking about the kind of folks that I want and the kind of experiences that they may look for. One of the cool things that Facebook actually has is they have a skills translator. So, for example, if you have your MOS or one of your skills classifiers, our recruiters can go over to a database, type it in, and look for the job titles that actually seem like a good transition for the folks. So as we continue to hire vets into our teams, the request that I always have is please pay it forward. Somebody had to help give you a foot in the door, be that for somebody else.
Yep. Love that. We had a lot of simultaneous north-south head nods when you said pay it forward, something I really believe in, and I've seen work miracles in my own career. Anyone else have anything to add to that one thread?
Dwayne, I think that with some of the specialized jobs, it's a little harder into where to put it. But I think for like some of the customer service based jobs, I think a lot of it is attitude and aptitude. And if I talk with someone who's going to apply, I tell them, be confident, and you have great skills behind you that you've learned, and companies are looking for that. So we try to put them in the right spot, and like Chuck mentioned and Sarah mentioned, they just need a chance. You get your foot in your door, the rest of it it'll take care of it. So I think that's we have to let veterans know too that, hey, it's don't think that you need to come in with that exact skill set, because you're applying for a job that maybe the skills you have will matter. So
yeah. Thus far, go ahead.
what I was going to add was I'm trying to reflect on my transitioning experience, and I think I think for sure, like I echo what Merrick and Sarah said. I think it's that like sponsorship and that opportunity and that like the network paying it forward. But also I think from a veteran's perspective, I think what I did to really help get myself in a position of readiness is to really look at what kind of skill sets are these jobs or these companies looking for, and take those those internship opportunities, even though they might not pay or they might not like yield a financial outcome, or even like the exact position you want. It's adding to the skill set, it's adding to the tools in your toolkit that allows you to be able to be like, hey, I have been customer facing, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm thinking about the customer segmentation, and this is how I can marry my military experience as well as what I've done in the private sector to like solve a complex problem within the tech sector. So I think that's really important to really think about as well.
Yep. As we're sitting here discussing, talking about this transition, we've been spending a lot of time talking about veterans and then also active duty military, what they need to know as they're thinking about transitioning. And I realize we haven't spoken yet about spouses, right? Because there's no soldier, airman, or sailor that's going through that whole process alone, whether they're with their buddies or whether they're married. They have a partner and a spouse that's helping them throughout the entire journey. And I've been really pleased to see that a number of different companies, Google included, have really deliberately focused on military spouses and opportunities that open up there. But would love to hear your thoughts, and this is up for anyone on the panel that has something to add here around how do we think about the military spouse versus the veteran? Is it the same approach that we take? Do we have a different set of programs? Like, just tell me a little bit more about that.
I'm happy to jump in. So the work we've done both internally at the company and then with our job training has been open to spouses since day one. It used to. So we've made some changes and evolved to be inclusive. Folks here may have known our program by a name VetForce, right? That wasn't inclusive language for a military spouse or a transitioning service member that didn't feel like they were a veteran yet. And so now we go by Salesforce military. And this is saying, yes, if you're a part of the military community, you're allowed to sort of be in this. There were a lot of questions like, are you sure, right? We were just sending all these signals, pictures of veterans, pictures in uniform, the name veteran. And, we were so proud we were open to it. And that was something that we needed to go back and fix. And we did that a couple of years ago. Military spouses, we self-ID now internally. We do a lot of work externally to just pitch the value. And I think what's really exciting is how successful military spouses have been with the education and training and just sharing successes. And just, we're really noticing this repeating pattern of people seeing themselves in tech, bringing folks along. It's so similar to the military community where there are all these channels and ways to access and all these people celebrating and supporting one another as they've moved and, done so much for our country. And so it's really, it's been exciting to continue to champion the stories and just continue supporting careers of spouses. And the most exciting thing, I think, in the silver lining of COVID is all these virtual jobs. And so the ability to move and keep your job has always been such an issue for military spouses trying to build their careers. And if it stays like we think it will, that's just going to mean great career success and just these assets that get to stay at employer. So lucky them.
Awesome. Any other?
Yeah, I can jump in, Dwayne. So, I moved 11 times in 21 years. And my poor wife was with me the whole time, and her resume was a big garbage pile of whatever she could do while I was stuck someplace for 18 months. And it was almost impossible for her to find a job because everywhere she went, she was used as a transient. And nobody wants to invest heavily in a transient. It's right there on a resume that she's not going to stick around. So she really, really struggled. I mean, I think Ann's exactly right. If we go forward, there's going to be a lot more remote opportunities, and spouses are going to have a much better time of finding things that they can continue regardless of where their spouse happens to be stationed. But if you're not lucky enough to be falling forward, you're still in the middle of, what do I do? My military member is moving, and I'm stuck. How do I do my resume? What we found from personal experiences is my wife actually adjusted her resume in the objective to talk about the fact that I'm a spouse of a military member and we move a lot. And this is what I can do. And these are the values I can add despite that, and focused on the things that made her a better candidate because of these many opportunities that she'd had in 20 years. And but you're really in a tough spot. It's a rock and a hard place situation, and that you bring so much diversity and scope of understanding and things that you've done, yet they're gonna put you in that bucket of, well, we might get 2 years out of him or her, and that's the end. And so you're gonna have to be very conscious of that when you craft your resume and you craft your objectives and you talk about your experiences, so that they don't focus on that first and then all your experience second. So just as a whatever, we do like rock your profile events for LinkedIn, and I do a lot of those for veteran transition groups, and we talk to spouses and military members about ways to craft your resume to de-emphasize some of the risks that employers might see in that resume. And that would be just something to think about as you're going through. There's actually tools on LinkedIn Learning to help you figure out how to do that well.
That's great.
Yeah, I feel like for sure it's hard. I've been on both sides. I'm a military spouse as well as a vet, so I almost feel like being a military spouse is even a bit harder, as you're you don't have as much of a control of your life in terms of geographic locations and then career choices. But I know for sure at Amazon, I'm involved in multiple spouse groups, military spouse groups especially. There's definitely a support system there. And if your spouse is needed, there's absolutely programs for it, just as much for veterans. I think you just have to look for it and make sure that the narratives match. And another thing, like I was thinking as we're talking, is that not all military veterans and military spouses are created equal, right? Like everyone should be treated like individuals. There's characteristics that are similar, but I think at the end of the day, it's up to the military spouse as well as the veterans to really figure out what they want to do and really reflect and pause as they're making the big transition in their life, and do some internal introspection. And then there's the network is there. The network is there to support you and back you in however way you want it. Yeah.
Yep. Any other thoughts on that or personal anecdotes? I thought those are three, or 2 or 3 great points. That topic actually got me thinking about, you mentioned, Stephanie, that it's hard to be to go the military spouse route. And this is from someone who's done both, right? You've been on both sides. It makes me think about Imposter Syndrome, which is something I think was coined maybe 10, 15 years ago in an HBR article, I believe. But this thought that you've gotten a position, you're on the team. Sarah, you mentioned it. You're working with a bunch of rock stars who had been doing something tech related or had been in the civilian world working for a decade, even sometimes before you showed up. That number varies. I think for spouses, it's something that they face. I think it's something that everyone faces. I know, I've felt that way on a number of different occasions. We'll love the panel's thoughts on how to spot it, how to overcome it, and how to help others get through that. We can start with Troy maybe on this one.
No, I think that's a good question, Dwayne. I think that for some of it too, I just want to cover a little bit on what Stephanie said about the spouse, only because it's very close to me. My sister is a military spouse who's moving in the next 2 weeks, and her house fell through. so I've been trying to help her find a place to live. So when she said, I think it's even harder, I can tell you that, yeah, I mean, they put together everything. When her husband's deployed, yeah, she does it all. So, and sorry, I was trying to come off mute on the last question. So sorry about covering that.
Sure.
And with the global mentorship program that we have, I've mentored both, spouses and military members, and I can tell you that's something I had to learn, was to separate that group, is what Stephanie kind of mentioned, because it was a husband and wife, and I kept finding myself bringing over to what the husband's skills were, which was not the same. Finally, I asked her, what is it that you want to do? Right? Leave everything out. What do you want to do? And when we got past that, it opened up a whole bunch of other things. So I definitely think that, that part of it is really important. And I know too what my wife went through when I was deployed. It's not easy. I mean, what they go through, I think it's hard for anybody to understand what that's really like. So I'll stop with that.
Awesome.
I think to get back to your question, Dwayne, on imposter syndrome, it's definitely a thing. I actually like to call it delayed value add. When you start in any company, there's going to be an on-ramp time, and it happened to me at Microsoft as well. It was at least 6 months before I felt myself that I was adding some type of value to the work that others were judging me for. I've seen different folks get into the IT field, Army truck drivers, Navy medics, without an IT background, really changing their lives, getting the skills, getting into entry-level positions, and moving forward. So I definitely think there's it's a valid valid feeling that people experience, but I think just getting through that hump, getting working with teamwork is a quality that is inherent in veterans and transitioning service members, and we really like to promote that to our hiring partners and ensure. And my advice is really to lean on the folks that you are working with, gain that experience, and you'll be adding value in no time.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love the question on imposter syndrome, and I'll be a little, I guess, more transparent with my journey. I feel like I have encountered imposter syndrome every time I've changed a job in tech. I run global procurement teams, global ops engineering teams, and of course, you're running a variety of teams now at Facebook. But every time I change roles, it's amazing to suddenly get overwhelmed by how much I don't know. And every time I humble my spirits and I start asking questions. But there was one particularly great piece of advice while I was in procurement. The VP there said, Sarah, stop focusing on all of these skills and things that you don't have. Think of what you do have and mash your foot down on the gas pedal with those skills. And it was a really fundamentally reassuring conversation that I kind of have with myself every time I change roles. I am okay that with the fact that I will probably never be the smartest person in the room in tech. That's a great thing. That means that I get to connect ideas, connect people, align projects, get resourcing online, and carry the message to other teams, to my peers around. So, imposter syndrome, I think for me, has been a little bit of a performance enhancer, and it makes me bring my best to the table.
Yep. And also, just to add to that, there's many different types of smart in those rooms, in all those meeting rooms, and I've seen it happen on numerous occasions where there's a lot of engineering type smart, there's a lot of business savviness type smart, there's a lot of very effective application of empathy, understanding what other people are really wanting from an engagement. There's, just raw calculation mathematics type smart. I mean, there's every type of smart in the room that you can think of. And I think knowing, I love what you said, Sarah, about focus on what you're good at and just smash the gas pedal and just take that and run with it. Because in every room that you're in, you can always do something that very few other folks can at the level that you can. So I think that's great. So maybe I'll just shift. So we're going to get some questions up on the screen. Oh, great. It just popped up. Let me just zoom in on that. Ooh, Keith has a great question for us and would love volunteers on this one. But Keith asks, what do you think differentiates a tech company, tech in quotes, of course, from a more traditional company that deals in technology? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
I can jump in.
Sure.
I'm actually not at LinkedIn. I'm not in technology at all. So I really don't see there being much difference between the two companies in terms of finding your way into one. I think what you focus on in your transition is, again, like we've been talking about, is finding your passion in the space and making sure you're aligned with, what's going to inspire you going forward. But it's also about finding the right culture at a company that can provide that for you. Because there's, you may be conditioned to be in, I think Ann was talking about that hierarchical, this is how we behave. There's always somebody above you. There's always somebody to ask permission from. That never resonated with me. I never put on 05 because I just refused to go sit in the Pentagon and make coffee. I was just not going to do it. So I'm like, all right, we're done. So I stayed in the field. I did 9 combat deployments and I punched out after that. I'm like, I'm going to retire as an 04 because I want to be able to make my own decisions. So I sought out a culture that would allow me to do that on that civilian side. And it took a lot of me interviewing recruiters versus what you think would be the other way around. Tell me about how your days go. When you go into a company for an interview and everybody on the panel is in a 3-piece suit, I don't want to work there. That's not me. I don't like to dress like that every day. And I'm certainly not going to be on site and have somebody looking over my shoulder, making sure the clock says 5 before I walk out. So you gotta survey the cultures that are available to you and kind of vector yourself that way. So going back to the question itself, tech is kind of an umbrella term, I would call. And there's almost every possible field in these companies and the folks that are on the call, Microsoft, Amazon, Salesforce, Facebook, we've all got every type of job in these big companies. So when you're looking at tech, you're mostly looking at getting into the culture of that experience more so than a specific line of work. It would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in something that Chuck said that really, it resonates with me. When I talked and I interview people, I ask them, I said, what's the feeling that you get, after this? That's where the culture is really shown, because if, they do show up in a 3-piece suit and it's very stodgy, that's the way that that company probably is. I think that is so important that, and to let people know that, ask if you can speak with other people at the company. Hey, can I speak to somebody on your team? And they're going to give you a couple different people. Find out what the culture is, and sometimes there's a culture within a culture on some of these teams, and you'll find out quickly that, and this is the place to work. And I think that the tech is an umbrella term, like you mentioned, and I think you got to find what you want to do, and then find a team that can help you get there.
Yeah. If I may add one more thing, I would say I agree with both of the gentlemen's points above, but it's like asking, what is the Army like? Or like, what was the Air Force like, right? Yeah, so it's almost equivalent to like, what is Amazon like? Amazon hires 1.5 million people like globally, right? And I think it all varies depending on which product team you're on, or even program team you're on. Who is your manager? Where is the leadership stand on their culture? And it all just, I think organizations are a composition of people, and people make up that culture. So be very specific when you're interviewing, not just the company culture, but what is that team culture like? Who is your hiring manager? Who is your skip level? Ask them the tough questions. Interview them on, hey, does your management style match with what I hope to get out of this role or this job, or like the next 3 to 5 years, or however long you plan to stay at the company.
Yeah, makes sense. And just for the record, skip level is your boss's boss. That's something that was new to me in the tech world. When I joined, people said skip level, and I had no clue what they were talking about. Let's go to the next question on the door. There's one other pretty good one in there. Okay, great. Yeah. So Daniel asks, how necessary is it to do an MBA or another advanced degree type of schooling before pursuing employment in tech? How do you view the time, money, and experience trade-offs? Great question, Daniel.
I'll start off on that one. Just knowing our experience at Microsoft, we have made really good headway with our own teams, with our own recruiters, in promoting veterans and transitioning service members who do not have advanced degrees, but who have skills in IT. That's what's being measured. That's what's being valued these days. And it used to be, the recruiter would say, "What's your degree in?" "Well, I don't have a degree." "Well, get a degree and come back and see me." That's not the reaction anymore. We're evaluating folks for the skills that they have, and we are promoting lots of folks within Microsoft and with our hiring partners who don't have an advanced degree. So I would say, in order to get into tech, you don't necessarily need an MBA. It might be helpful if you want to go that route, but it's not, from my perspective, it's not necessary.
Yeah, totally agree there. I stepped into tech without an MBA. All of my master's degrees, my PhD that I'm working on, that all came after I actually started in tech. And generally, most managers understand, for example, the craving to self-develop and want to support the pursuit of you getting better. I can't think of a single manager that wants you to stay stagnant that I've ever run across in tech.
I think it depends on the role that you want to go into, right? Like if you want to go into a financial planning role within a tech company, maybe that is the barrier to entry. Like getting an MBA is the way to get into that company. But I think in terms of like tech as an industry, I would say it's pretty agnostic in terms of an MBA or even like advanced degrees. If we just take a step back and look at a lot of these founders, like Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have a college degree, neither does Bill Gates. Like Elon notoriously denounces MBAs. I was an MBA intern at Tesla, and I was one of 8 out of 200. So, it really depends on your personal situation, what you want to get out of life, what roles you want to get into, and whether or not if your family is okay with you sacrificing the potential opportunity costs to go and get a degree, both from a financial time as well as a personal standpoint. So I think it's a very personal choice.
Gotcha. Yep, makes sense. Great answers. So we've only got a couple of minutes left. I'd like to do one lightning round of a quick answer from every single panelist on the board in, let's say 20, 30 seconds or less. Let's make it 10 seconds or less. What is the number one thing that you miss about the military? I'll say it again so that everyone can think about it for another half a minute. What's the one thing that you miss the most about the military? I'll start with you, Sarah.
The incredible loyalty, the fact that during deployments you can have good days and bad days, but at the end of everything, you have each other's backs, and it is quite literally, I would take a bullet for you. That is hard to replicate.
Yep. Go ahead, Merrick.
I was going to answer it a little bit more, esoterically, as far as not seeing that daily message traffic and knowing what's really going on in the world. That would be one of the things that I miss from the military.
Yep. You're up, Ann. And you're up for that question. Yeah, sorry.
For me, it's just getting to work with best friends. I made some of the strongest relationships I've ever made in the military, and I miss some of those people, certainly.
All right, Troy, you're up.
Yeah, I think the camaraderie, right? The camaraderie, the banter, which is what keeps those teams so tight. I think that's what I miss the most.
And then I think last person, we still have Chuck and Stephanie. Chuck, you're up.
I'm going to plus one on everybody except for Merrick. From a sub guy getting messages, he would miss that. I get that. Those guys are a class by themselves. But from everybody else, I'm totally aligned. It's the camaraderie. It's the bonds you make. You just can't replicate that anywhere.
Yeah, I'll say without a doubt, it's the people. The friendships that you make are just lifelong, like relationships that you'll keep for the rest of your lives. But also the 4-day weekends.
Fair enough. I like that one. I forgot all about that one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Plus one to everything everyone said. Camaraderie, yes. There's also, I just miss the real world, like life and death responsibility. It's like, I don't know if you're ever going to get that anyplace else. If you have kids, maybe keeping them alive, keeping them thriving. I think that'll do it. But unfortunately, we're out of time for this panel. But thank you so much to all the panelists who joined. This was awesome. Love the anecdotes. Love the personal stories. Thank you very much for the audience's participation and attendance. We appreciate you guys showing up and taking more information on at this very formative time in your career where you're considering making that transition. To all those that are watching, there are more industry panels today following this one, starting at 1 p.m. Starting at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and then 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you're curious about working in the sports industry, you can stay logged on to this live stream right here, and you'll hear from representatives from the Yankees, the Lakers, the 49ers, NFL, and Major League Baseball. If you're more interested in hearing about gaming and entertainment or the consumer electronics industries, you can go back to the VetNet Career Week website and view those panels there. All panels will be recorded, so don't worry about missing it. And you can review them later on YouTube or Google Veterans website at g.co/vets. Again, that's golf.charlieoscar/vets. And thanks again so much for watching. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.